From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi Back Bay, I want to welcome you to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because we are the capital of the outdoors in America. Thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network, or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV. But some of you are watching on YouTube or Facebook or your favorite podcast. It's January the 9th, 2023. Hey, we've got a great show today. I've got Brian Ferguson, who's the Chief of Staff for the Mississippi State Parks. We're going to talk to Brian about his story and about their efforts on the state park side. And in the first half of the show, I'm going to be joined by my friend Ed Penny, who's the Director of Public Policy for the Southern Region for Ducks Unlimited. Without any further ado, let me come over to Ed and just say good afternoon to you, Ed. How you doing, my friend?
Good afternoon, Ricky. Great to see you again, and Happy New Year. It's been several weeks since we've chatted, but a lot has happened.
It has been busy, both in sort of the world of this show, but also in the world of enjoying the outdoors. Man, I've had some awesome hunts, man. My group, both duck hunting and deer hunting. It's been great. I mean, the weather, I wish it was a little cooler, obviously. You know that better than anybody. But we've had some great times in the outdoor. Had my grandson at the camp this past weekend. It was just awesome. How about you? You enjoying the outdoors?
Oh, yeah. It's been a great few weeks. Right before Christmas, we had that huge cold front. It wasn't a cold snap, but a cold front hit. It was well-timed, and I was able to get out and enjoy it then. Had a great Christmas with family and friends out in the woods in Claiborne County, and since then, been trying to get back to work, but trying also to get out in the woods and over the water a little bit too. So it's been fantastic.
It's been cool. So down here on the coast, it's already time to start thinking about February approach and yellowfin tuna as they get into a bit shallower water, about 75 miles off the coast. And we go chunking for them when we can find sort of a weather break. And we're in that mode. I'm already thinking about getting the boat ready and what do I need to do and getting it serviced. And, it's weird. You think of coastal Mississippi in February, having, some of the biggest yellowfin tuna you'll ever catch this time of year. But it's that time of year. Never a dull moment in Mississippi. That's why I call it, the capital of the outdoors in America. Hey, listen, meanwhile, you were in the news recently by some news. You went to the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks Commission meeting. It was not related to DU. In fact, it had to do with, I think, family land that you own in Claiborne County. But I talked about the exchange that you and Commissioner Leonard Bentz had. I was kind of disappointed in how that all went. But what kind of bring people up to speed on that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And, as a landowner in Claiborne County, I've been fortunate to marry a beautiful woman from Port Gibson, and we have some property there that we are fortunate to take care of and manage for deer. And we fish on it, we duck hunt on it, we turkey hunt on it. Like most Mississippians, we do a lot of things, and we want to enjoy it. And I was pretty disappointed to see that in the November meeting, the commission changed a recent action that they put into place because of chronic wasting disease. Chronic wasting disease is a serious issue for white-tailed deer around the country. But unfortunately, it's now in Mississippi, mostly in North Mississippi. A few of the South Delta counties have it too. But Louisiana had a positive case a couple months ago. And as part of that positive case hitting in Tensall Parish, just across the river from Port Gibson, we had to take measures to manage the spread of CWD into Mississippi. And one of those measures is to ban supplemental feeding. Now, there's lots of people on different sides of that issue, and I'm not going to argue that, but what we should all share is the fact that we don't want chronic wasting disease in our county or in our state, in our deer that we spend so much time enjoying. And unfortunately, in November, the commission made a unilateral decision to reverse that supplemental feeding ban and to encourage the spread of CWD into my county and Claiborne County. So they did that without any public input, without any stakeholder discussion. They are required to consult with a lot of other experts and entities before they modify that chronic wasting disease management plan, and they did not do that. So I think it was wise to hold them to account. And in December, a month after they made that decision, that's when I made public comment. And unfortunately, all I got was blank stares and no response since then. So there was a little bit of exchange there, but you know, responsibility is what these folks are supposed to hold, and we need to hold them responsible.
Well, this wasn't the first time that they had made a decision that dealt with CWD that without public input. How concerned are you that they're starting to make unilateral decisions like that?
Well, there's a whole code of statutes, of laws and regulations that this commission is supposed to uphold. And if they're on the commission, they need to be responsible and follow the law. I'm concerned that unless folks are watching and listening to them, they will continue to make decisions that don't have the best interest of wildlife and sportsmen in their brains.
Yeah, you know what was interesting, because I also talked about something else that happened in that meeting back in December. Leonard Bench dragged over the coals U.S. Forestry Supervisor Shannon Killardy, and she actually manages 1.2 million efforts. But what the U.S. Forest Service had done is put some safety policies in place that were identical to the safety policies that are in place that Mississippi put in place in the wildlife management areas. And he seemed to be unaware of that they were simply just matching up these safety policies. But what I want to say, when I say dragged over the coals, he said that she should have sought public input. And it's interesting that they had made two decisions. The commissions themselves had made two decisions related to CWD management without seeking public input. I'm just disappointed by the turn of events that we saw there. And then I've talked a lot about the sale of white-tailed deer in Mississippi, and I've been digging because I really wanted to understand where this came from. And then I found that when we got the Attorney General opinion that the commission, which actually reverses Jim Hood's decision that said the commission could not do such a thing. The current Attorney General did say, Lynn Fitch said that they could make this decision around the sale of white-tailed deer if they choose to do that. I wanted to know where this came from, and I looked, and by the way, it was in January of 2022. It's in the minutes. And it was Billy DeVinny sort of offered up the possibility that the commission could make such a decision to sell white-tailed deer, and was asking the commission to seek an attorney general's opinion. And digging a little deeper, you see Commissioner Bentz, who'd only been just joined the commission, made a motion to send DeVinny's letter to the attorney general to get an attorney general's opinion about whether the commission could make such a decision. I'm a former publisher, man. I have a lot of questions. I want to know about the relationship between Bentz and DeVinny. Did DeVinny have any role in the appointment of Bentz to the commission? I don't know the answers to these questions, but I'm going to find out. It just feels like the deck's kind of stacked in a way. I hope that's not the case, but do you have any thought about that?
Well, I do have some thoughts about the buying and selling a white-tailed deer. That is the public owns our wildlife. That is an American birthright. It's the birthright of every Mississippian. Hunting and fishing is a constitutional right. We will not allow the buying and selling of white-tailed deer in this state because there's too many people that care too much about the health of our wildlife. Buying and selling deer brings in CWD. We know that. We know that in states where buying and selling deer is allowed, CWD is widespread. And I personally don't want chronic wasting disease in the deer that I hunt. That affects the diets and nutrition of my kids. It affects the things that we eat. There's too much risk involved. And for us to downplay those risks is wrong. It's morally wrong. It's ethically wrong. It's irresponsible. And I would suggest that we need to make it illegal. Clearly make it illegal to buy and sell wildlife in our state.
Well, what's interesting in the high fence regulation that was adopted, at the very top, it says the sale of white-tailed deer is prohibited. But what Lynn Fitch's Attorney General's ruling did is it puts a lot of power in the commission. And I think that what we need to do is have a serious conversation in our state about whether some legislation is needed to kind of nip this in the bud so we can move forward. I won't go into a big spiel about it, but you can go to the SuperTalk Outdoors Facebook page if you want to read more or watch more shows that discuss why the sale of whitetail deer is a real deviation from the North American wildlife conservation effort that has really made Mississippi the capital of the outdoors in America. We don't want just a few people, 4 or 5, whitetail breeders, to change the heritage of our entire state in terms of how we approach conservation efforts. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Ed Penny from Ducks Unlimited.
Mississippi till I'm dead and gone, just carry on, oh, carry on, Mississippi.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have my friend Ed Penny. He's the Director of Public Policy for the Southern Region for Ducks Unlimited. Ed, when we talked about sort of the work of the commission and the sale of whitetail deer and CWD management, the part of me says don't do too much of those conversations because I want to talk more about people's love of the outdoors. I want this to be a positive show and all these things. But the reality is the work of the commission, every hunter, everyone who enjoys the outdoors in Mississippi, over 700,000 people, have to pay attention to sort of the inner workings of these organizations because if we are not focused on them, if we're not sort of watching them closely, things can happen that can really change the course of history for our enjoyment in this state. So I promise the listeners that I'm not going to focus on these things too often. But when these issues come up, such as the sale of whitetail deer in Mississippi, we're going to be focused on it, and we're going to work hard to communicate to you why it should matter to you. So my promise is not to overdo it.
Ricky, let me jump in right there. I've got good relationships with these commissioners. And, in my job, I work with commissions and boards around the South and every state fish and wildlife agency. And I've got good relationships with these commissioners. And that's why it was difficult personally to hold them to account and to go call them to the mat. But it is our job as sports people. It is our job as conservationists to go and pay attention to the commission meetings, watch them on YouTube. Read the minutes if you have a few minutes, but even more importantly, if they're working on an issue that's important to you, whether it's WMA regulations and Malmaison WMA when they were trying to close part of a public hunting area, we can't let this stuff happen. We have to hold them accountable because they are supposed to represent our interests as sports people. So
one of the things yeah, and Ed, one of the things that's important to me is I get a chance on this show. We're going to talk to Brian Ferguson coming up here in the second half of the show to talk to all these dedicated professionals that work inside the department. And they've dedicated their lives to helping make sure that there's a heritage many years, many generations past our own to enjoy here in Mississippi. And it's important for the commission. They usually do support them. I'm not suggesting that they don't support the department. That's not at all the case. But from time to time, there are issues where they don't listen carefully to what the department is saying to them, and they should listen more carefully. CWD is a great example of that. But at the end of the day, we'll stay focused on it. We're not trying to pick fights. The reality is, most of the time it goes really well, and that's why we are the capital of the outdoors in America. But when there is a deviation, when you have political appointees, that's kind of what can happen from time to time. That's why you have to have watchdogs. So anyway, I'm confident that Governor Reeves doesn't want a dust up around the sale of whitetail deer during an election year for sure. But that shouldn't be the reason we don't focus on it. We should focus on it because it's a generational issue, how we manage and conserve wildlife in the state, and we don't want to deviate from that. That's the important point I want to make. So, hey, listen, we've had some good wins in Congress lately, and it's going to benefit Mississippi in a big way. Tell a bit about what you're learning.
Sure. So even while all that commission nonsense was happening in December, Congress was getting to the end of the Congress, and before it shifted over the last several days. But we did have some big wins, and we can talk about this more later. But the North American Wetland Conservation Act, one of the biggest grant programs in place for waterfowl habitat conservation, received historic levels of funding, $50 million this year of appropriations from Congress. That's the most it's ever received in its history. And we fully intend, with the help of the Mississippi Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, to make sure that a lot of those dollars come into Mississippi for work at Mahana, for work at Mount Mason, for work at all the new WMAs that may be coming online. So that's a huge win, and we're happy that Ducks Unlimited was a part of that. The other big win was the Water Resource Development Act. That supports and funds a lot of the Corps of Engineers projects around the country. We developed a new program this year called the Lower Mississippi River Demonstration Program. That's going to bring $40 million to the Lower Mississippi River states. We want Mississippi to be able to benefit from that as well. So those were two of the most significant wins.
And you mentioned the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, but as I said, you got this dream team of a board focused on plans and the future. They hit the ground running, but all signs are still moving in the right direction, isn't it?
That's right. The board has been extremely active, working weekly in a public meeting format. They have been getting input from a lot of stakeholders and partners and folks to develop this grant program for the trust fund. I feel like they're very close to announcing when that grant program will be open. They're very close to hiring some folks and some personnel to manage the program. So I've been very impressed with all the appointees there. They've been active, they've been learning, they've been talking to conservation folks. So we're excited about what's going to happen over the next few months.
And and they've been learning from what other states have done. Now, one thing, I wish we were further along in this, but the reality is, since we weren't, we've been willing to reach out and talk to other states who've had tremendous success, with the focus being, how can we make the most amount of impact? First of all, we want this demonstration year, this first year, we want to hit it out of the park. Because what we really want to focus on is getting some adjustments to the legislation in the future that enable a dedicated funding source, so we don't have to come back year after year. But in order to do that, the projects have to be sound and they have to be long-term impacting, but also they have to have a strong connection to federal funds, matching funds. And you're confident they're focused in that way?
I'm very confident of that. We just mentioned a couple of federal sources that are out there. There's private sector dollars from foundation and groups like Ducks Unlimited, the Nature Conservancy, Wildlife Mississippi, and others. These dollars are going to be put on the ground and in places that Mississippians will see. They will enjoy them. And you're right, we had to get it going. This is a new program, and we can't go too quickly and make it something that we don't want, that Mississippians don't want, that's not going to benefit the whole state. So they're taking their time. They're looking at places like South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, others. The model's out there. We just had to make it fit Mississippi, and we look forward to putting some projects on the ground in the next several months.
So as you talk to your DU cohorts across the flyway, what's your thoughts on how the end of the season is going to go here in Mississippi?
I'm excited about it. Usually we hear complaints if duck season is going terribly, and for the last 3 years it has been. And I feel like we're getting back to an average year where folks, and myself included, I haven't had too many limit out hunts, but we've had ducks and we've had good hunts, and it's been getting back to what we would consider normal. But this past several days we've had huge full moons. It's affected deer movements. It's affected duck hunting. I think when that changes, we'll have a good last couple of weeks of duck season, like we often do.
I had a friend of mine, a friend of my son's, hunting with us this past weekend, and I sat with him at our place over in Mentor City and saw a beautiful 10-point that's going to be a monster next year. It broke his heart that we had to pass on it. but we saw another 10-point and then a spike and a bunch of does. But it was absolutely an incredible hunt. It was beautiful weather. It wasn't as cold as you wanted it to be, but it didn't seem to matter. Over a few fingers from us, my son Jordan was having a really good hunt as well. Not seeing as many mature deer as you would like to see, but the herd's in good shape, and it bodes well for the years to come. And then of course as I mentioned, they had some great duck hunts. And the duck hunt yesterday was in the fog, which makes it challenging because by the time they appear, they appear coming through at 30 miles an hour, and it makes it challenging. But it's fun to have ducks. I don't care what kind of ducks they are. It's fun to have ducks, isn't it, buddy?
It is. And I was down on the coast a couple weeks ago, or I guess it was last week around New Year's. I don't get down to the coast very often in the wintertime, but there were tons of sea ducks, scoters, scaup out there, diving ducks. Having ducks around is always a good thing, even if no matter if you're hunting them or not. But folks that are getting out there during duck season, just go duck hunt, shoot ducks, enjoy it with your friends, get some out for the dog. I've got a 1-year-old dog. He needs to practice, so don't worry about what species it is. Just go out there and enjoy it.
Yeah, like we were saying before the show started, sometimes we get so focused on the greenheads we lose what it's all about. And having ducks, whatever their species, as you mentioned, is just great. The camaraderie, the social sport aspect of it. It's from the time you gather to the time you get in the blind together to even during the hunt and then after the hunt. That's what duck hunting's all about. As I've said many times, it's literally the ultimate social sport, isn't it?
It really is. And I was in the blind last week up around Tunica and spending time with some guys that I'd never hunted with, but always respected and appreciated. It was great to build that relationship, reconnected with some friends from Washington, D.C., got to hunt with somebody who I'd never hunted with. So we had a quality hunt. We didn't kill a lot of ducks, but it was a very quality hunt.
Well, Ed Penny from Ducks Unlimited, it's been great to catch up with you, my friend.
Great to see you, Ricky. Take care.
Stay safe in the outdoors. Remember the story I told, the guy who shot a deer, left his gun off, the safety off, was taking it off his shoulder. He brushed the trigger. It went off. No one was hurt, but that's someone I know. Man, stay safe. Keep the breeches open. Keep your guns unloaded when you're not using them. That's so important.
I'll carry on, Mississippi.
This is Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. Hope you're having a great day. I really enjoyed that conversation with Ed Penny. Incidentally, I was at BB's. BB's is a deer processor right there in Greenwood this past weekend with BB and Charlotte, and got to know them well over the years because we bring our deer there to get processed. They do a great job with that, incidentally. But I go in with my hat on, my Super Talk Outdoors hat on, and people are interested in it. They pay attention to the show, and it's always good to sort of get out and about and bump into people and them to sort of give us good feedback about what we're doing. But anyway, thank you for listening, and kind of shout out to my friends BB and Charlotte. Now let's shift gears and move over to my new friend Brian Ferguson. Got a chance to chat with him a little bit before the show started. He's currently the chief of staff for Mississippi State Parks. Has had a great run at the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. But good morning to you, Brian.
How you doing? Glad to be here.
I'm doing really good. I'm doing great. So listen, you started as an internal auditor back in 2011, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But I want to talk about what happened before 2011. Where are you from?
I'm from the Mississippi Delta. I'm from a small town called Glen Allen, Mississippi, right outside of Greenville, Mississippi.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. Incidentally, Steve Azar, my friend, is he's on the show all the time. He has a show in the Mississippi Minute here on Super Talk, and in Leland he has his Songwriters Festival, Mockingbird Songwriters Festival. I think it's in April every year. But it's a great place to kind of grow up, huh, buddy? Especially if you enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. My entire family is from there. We were born and raised. I love it. I love going back home too.
What's your favorite thing to do in the outdoors?
So right now, I'm more of a non-consumptive user right now. I'm not a huge hunter, but I'm more of bird watcher. Right now I'm flying drones. So me and my son, we all out flying drones and doing things like that. So just enjoy being outside.
Well, I say that all the time. We have 700,000 outdoorsmen and fishermen and hunters, but I often say on the show, if you just like canoeing or if you just like taking photographs, that Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors for a reason, because from the coast to extreme North Mississippi and at all points in between, there's so much to enjoy here in the state. And when you're with a department like the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks, you really get a chance to kind of see what Mississippi has to offer, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's the fantastic part about being in Mississippi is so many different types of outdoors. I mean, for me, I like to see the landscape. I like to see how beautiful it is. If I can take a drone out a couple of miles and just see what's out there, it's a pretty great view. But yeah, the department offers almost every type of opportunity for outdoorsmen. So it's been great.
Brian, did I read that you were also in the National Guard?
Oh, of course. I've been in the National Guard for 24 years as of December. So yeah, that's been in the Mississippi National Guard, been deployed to Iraq and Kuwait and some everywhere. Poland, I've been everywhere. So
I had to find that out. You're very modest, because in your short bio that you provided me, it didn't have anything about that in there. And I usually go outside the bio to try to understand more about who are the people that we're talking to here on Super Talk Outdoors. But you had a key operations management role.
Yeah, I'm a field grade officer now. I'm approaching retirement here soon. But it's been a great run from enlisted to officer. Did a lot of company command. Did a huge mission over in Kuwait in 2018. That was fun. So I've been around. I've kind of wrapped this career up with just various different things. But kind of been a servant all my life though. So started at 17 years old as a Mississippi National Guardsman. So proud of all that service. I have no regrets at all.
So it's no surprise because of that, incidentally, that even though you started as an internal auditor when you joined the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks, within a year, you had moved over to administrative services in a management role. But, and then the rest of your career is sort of defined the same way. You had lots of different roles, including chief financial officer for the department. But, your time in the National Guard, you're learning about leadership and the amount of training that you've gone through, I can't even imagine. It's really helped you in your Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks roles, hasn't it?
That's been the key, honestly, starting off as a young soldier, but moving up those ranks and having 60 guys, 100 guys, and then taking care of missions around the world, you just learn a lot. So it's experience that is invaluable. I've been to some unique places. I've worked with some unique people, all types of cultures. But that leadership part of it, and the training that goes along with it, especially becoming an officer, that was some pretty in-depth training. But so many different personalities you learn. You're working with so many different stakeholders around the world. So you get an opportunity to gain a lot of valuable information and just key leadership strategies.
Yeah, I had the opportunity on my show on the coast called Coast View, because military presence here in coastal Mississippi, National Guard, Air Force, Marines, CBs, the Naval Construction Battalion Center, and the role they play around the world. It's always great to bring focus to them, bring focus to the role the military plays in Mississippi. And the opportunity you guys have to travel around the world, it really gives you a unique perspective on the United States and on Mississippi. And it really strengthens you, doesn't it?
Yeah, I remember one of my favorite times. I spent some time in Poland, and it was fantastic just learning the different cultures, seeing the landscape, seeing how people. But what's funny is what I realized traveling around the world and seeing all these people, everybody is typically the same. They want to enjoy their families. They want to enjoy the outdoors. It's all the same type of people. Of course, we're traveling and protecting the nation. So it's always that threat, and we're trying to eliminate that and protect the homeland. But people around the world are similar. They all enjoy their families. They all enjoy being outdoors and doing things. It's just a different landscape.
Isn't that interesting? A friend of mine was recently deployed to Poland in a support role during the Ukraine, in the early days of the Ukrainian war. And he sent me a picture. And it was a picture of a farm field similar to what you would see in the Mississippi Delta. And it had a deer blind back in the back. You could see the deer blind. And I said, where are you? Greenwood? Where are you? He said, Poland. I'm like, man, that looks so familiar. But did you have the same observation when you were there?
Same experiences. You see the farms and you see people, and it's amazing to look out, and you really, especially if you're from the Delta, all the flat land, you see all during the summer times, you see so much green and you can see a mile away. Similar experience, and you just look out and say, and sometimes like it just looks like I'm at home. I woke up on the other side of the world, and it still looks like I'm in Glen Allen, Mississippi.
But it's so cool to get that experience. Ewan McGregor, who is a famous actor, he's into Star Wars, movies. He has a set. I think it's on Apple Plus, where he goes around the world on motorcycles with his friend, and then he goes down to South America, goes up from South America to LA, and then I think he does something in Europe, and I don't. There's 3 different shows. But what's interesting about the shows, though, is that you get the feeling as he traveled around the world, literally all these different countries, that most places in the world are really kind of rural. They're small towns. Just like you said, they love family, they love community. Of course, there are dense cities that sort of defined our world, but most of the world is incredibly rural. You made that observation yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, it's extremely rural. You're talking about, you go out on a Sunday and you just see people fishing, and that's it. They food. I talk about family and things like that, but food.
Yeah.
Everybody want that food. You're eating fresh fish. It's amazing. Just around the world, the exact same thing. So I loved it. I appreciate all those experiences. They've shaped me, and I'm hoping that I can, after retirement, maintain some of those same relationships. And it was amazing time.
We're talking to Brian Ferguson, who is the chief of staff for the Mississippi State Parks. We're going to talk more about what that's all about here in just a second. But where did you go to school, Brian?
I went to school at Mississippi State. I got my bachelor's from Mississippi State, and I got my master's degree from Belhaven.
Yeah, well, awesome, man. And I'm assuming accounting was your major?
A finance degree. I got my finance degree and my master's in business administration.
That's cool. So so we're going to get into some of the issues around capital improvements and goals for the coming year. We'll get into that in the next segment. But just in a nutshell, what's the role of the chief of staff for the Mississippi State Parks?
So it's a external role, internal as well. So my role right now is just to lead the staff to ensure that our state parks can grow throughout the state. So this is a new role. We've just implemented it this year. But what we wanted to do was create a role that could lead the different strategies across the state. So I'm involved in a lot of things, from doing stakeholder meetings around the state, making sure that communities, what we're doing, how they affect communities and different things like that. And also just kind of leading the staff there. We got a great state park director, Andre Hollis, and he's been around about 25 years. And
that's good. So we're meeting with Brian Ferguson, the chief of staff for the Mississippi State Parks for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue the conversation. We'll see you after this.
Just carry on, I'll carry on.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have Brian Ferguson with us, and he's the chief of staff of the Mississippi State Parks. He's had a great career at the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks. And as we discussed in the first part of the show, he's also had a tremendous career with the Mississippi National Guards and been all over the world, and gives you such a wonderful perspective when when you have that opportunity. But, Brian, I can see why you were put into this role. For people who are watching on YouTube or Facebook, they can see you have a great smile. And for people who are listening, they can tell you have a very warm way of communicating. I think obviously you enjoy people. But, I mean, at the end of the day, when you lead people, especially when you're talking about a statewide organization like Mississippi State Parks, it's very relationship based, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's about just being friendly, but genuine also. I have a genuine passion to make sure to understand what people want. What we wanted to do was never just go into a community, and our state parks are in communities. So, and as we lead the agency and lead the different parts of the agency, we want to make sure that we're, engaging with the public, making sure that what our intentions are things that they want. No reason to just walk into a community and just say, here you go. We want to involve everybody. We want everybody to see what's going on and be extremely transparent in it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, in conversations with Speaker Philip Gunn and then, of course, with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, over the course of a long period of months, related somewhat to the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, but what it's done is sort of raise the specter. I think COVID had something to do with that. People wanting to get back into the outdoors, people wanting to get go places in their cars. They felt safe in their cars. It really positioned a terrific conversation around state parks in Mississippi and capital improvements that we can make. We've got a great state park system in the state, but we haven't invested in the state parks the way we should have over the years. But that has changed, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The last 2 years, frankly, I think the legislator, Lieutenant Governor, has done an amazing job just focusing the attention on state parks, the outdoors in general. What we've benefited from that is we have the resource. The state is a beautiful state. Our state parks are beautiful places. The investment into the capital improvements was what was necessary for us to get it back to the standard that I think everybody in the state can appreciate, and that's what we've done so far.
Yeah, it's clear that there's a capital improvement plan now. You've got goals for the upcoming year. I think everyone now is focused not only on the fact that there's the state's making investments in the state parks, but as you pointed out, the leadership is behind it. You're in this new role. You bring tremendous operational capabilities to the conversation. So not only are you good with people and can help lead them in a motivated way toward achieving the goals, but you know well what gets measured gets done, and it's time to put a project plan together to address the needs of the state parks. And it seems to me you've got the right skill sets to do that job.
Yeah, and that was the key. I always tell our staff the same thing. If it's not measurable, it's not we can't attain it. So what we did was we put together a 5-year capital improvement plan, and we didn't put it in our heads. We put it on paper. We're tracking it. We have those measurable goals. We know we can do small projects here. So it is all divided into different areas so we can all track it. We're putting the staff together that can do all those things. It's attainable. And as we have the leadership support over at the legislative side, then it's definitely something that we know we can do. You've probably seen some of those projects coming to fruition already.
Yeah, you're seeing, it comes in a wide variety of ways. But one of the projects that Delbert Hosemann talked about was the refurbishment and sort of upgrading of some of the cabins, and making them, because they have. How long has it been really since most of the cabins across the state park system have been upgraded?
It's been 30 years at least. It's been a while. Some of those cabins are older than that. You're talking to CCC, which was during World War II. So you're talking almost 100 years ago since these cabins have had any significant work done to them. And what we wanted to do was, modernize them, show people. We wanted to keep a rustic look to some, but we wanted to have multiple different styles of cabins and not just cabins. We're talking other amenities, RV pads. We're talking things for other users as well. So variety of different types of outdoorsmen. So we wanted to have a variety of different amenities.
And it's happening. It's happening. And you've got a budget. And, you know, with a budget comes a lot of responsibility. And I know you feel that, don't you?
It's you know, when you don't have anything, you're just working with nothing. It's kind of mundane job. You kind of just going through the motions. And so it's an added pressure, added stress, nothing that we can't handle for sure. But we love it. It's a great opportunity for the state of Mississippi. And it's a great opportunity for all of us in leadership position to take what they've given us and manage it.
No doubt about it. Hey, Brian, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. When we meet again, and we'll get back together next month or two, we'll kind of drill down a little bit and talk about some of those projects. I'd love to be able to do that. Anyway, for now, though, it's been great to get to know you better.
Hey, thank you for having me. I look forward to another one.
You bet. This has been Brian Ferguson, Chief of Staff for Mississippi State Farm Parks. And as I said at the end of the first segment, stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Stay safe. We'll see you next Monday. Have a great day, and God bless.